I would like to say that if you want to change the way you think about life or change your mindset, change what you watch and what you listen to. I'm talking to everybody, but particularly black men. Stop supporting the songs, videos that promote calling each other the N-word, the N-word, the N-word.
You're enjoying the Conveying Culture podcast with our host, StarrArmstrong.
My name is StarrArmstrong. I am the founder of Clever Communities in Action. I am an advocate for the Black community, and I am also a Black woman raised by a single father from the ages of 12 to adulthood. Peace, peace, peace. Greetings. How's everybody doing this evening? I am back again with my fourth father for the Conversations with Father series. Hope you all have been tuning in to get these jewels that these fathers, these phenomenal Black fathers have been dropping in regards to fatherhood in the Black community. We've heard some phenomenal fatherhood experiences from Seko, Kendall, Sean, and now BJ Butler. So I will be talking to BJ Butler right now. Hey, baby dad. Peace.
Hey, how you doing, baby mama?
I am great. Looking forward to having this conversation with you. I'm explaining to viewers that they can tune in to hear my conversation with Black fathers. Are you ready?
I'm ready.
Okay.
I'm ready.
All right. Well, I'm going to explain a little bit before we go all the way, before I dig into your business and get all into your fatherhood profile and all your beeswax. If anybody read the title, it says Conversations with Fathers with BJ Butler, my baby's daddy. And I want to explain this special interview because if you guys have been following my movement, you know that one of the main things I've been looking for throughout the years is Black men to be mentors for our youth. And I have some special little boys. Well, all my babies are special, but in my programs, I had one little boy who had been with me since he was in pre-K and another one since 4th grade. And they are now rising 8th graders.
Yes.
That's crazy. That is crazy. I remember when one of them didn't have any teeth in the front. And so I put the call out a lot to try to get mentors. And BJ stepped up and took on not just one of them, but two of them. And he is with them on a weekly basis and always doing phenomenal things with them and having an impact in their lives. And so now since he took my babies, we call each other baby daddy, baby mama, and we're co-parenting because that time I was going out of town and I was like, I need to meet up with you and drop this stuff off for the boy. So I'm like, yes. So you're a phenomenal co-parent, and I'm here to share you tonight and for everybody to find out about your fatherhood journey. So the first thing I need you to do is relinquish all that information. I need your name, your age, your marital status, how many children you have, and what the genders are. And if you got grandchildren, name that too.
Wow, okay.
All
blood type as well?
All of that.
Well, my name is BJ Butler. I have two daughters, 26 and 22, and I have a granddaughter who will be 6 in 2 more weeks. I'm 44 and a half years old, and I probably say and a half. Age is a state of mind, and I don't think I'm old at all. What was the other thing you wanted to know?
And you have 2 sons.
And my 2 sons, Davon and Alonzo. Davon just turned 13 2 weeks ago. Alonzo will be 13 next month, July 8th.
Yes.
Both going to 8th grade.
The bonus babies, the mentor babies, whom we love dearly. So thank you for divulging all that information. And you are the only adult I know who still counts halves. That is totally cool. So we'll jump right on into this. First thing I want to ask you is, what was your relationship like? What was or what is your relationship like with your own father?
My relationship with my father, we talk. Growing up, my mother raised us, so it was usually the weekend calls we would get because I grew up in Carolina. I'm originally from New York. So I found myself when I became a preteen, I would go up to New York and spend summers with him. And he and I have talked about this since then, but as I gotten a little older, I was able to articulate some of the things I was experiencing at a younger age that I couldn't articulate then, and that was the relationship is not as strong with him as it is with my mother, because naturally I spent more time with my mother, so I knew more of her ways and her habits. With my father, it was pretty much just go up north, spend the summer with him, and I love New York. And that was it. We talked about things, but at the same time, I found myself, there were things that he would tell me I would listen to. There was other things he would tell me, and I was like, man, I already know this stuff. What is he talking about? Because I've been so used to basically, being told to take care of my mother, look after my mother. So I could say the preteens, teenage years, I heard a lot of things from my father, but a lot of it kind of fell on deaf ears because his authority didn't have the same weight as it should for me as a father. You're always a parent, but there's a certain level of permission that you give your children and vice versa when you're there. But when you're not with both parents all the time, there's going to be a strain on a relationship in some way, shape, or form. So as I got older, I could just say that now I realized that I can't speak for him, but he might have felt some kind of way, and this is just me speculating. So I realized that somebody needs to speak up and say something, or at least try to put a bridge there or mend the bridge that was already there. So and that was me. I've always been the one that would just reach out, visit all my family and all the time, and we look forward to it. So I can say it's pretty good, but it can be better, and it will only get better as he and I just continue to be more open and honest about our relationship.
Okay. Thank you for sharing that. Now, do you feel, did you have any friends growing up who had close relationships with their fathers?
Oh, yeah, I did.
Do you feel that because of that, they may have had some advantages that you didn't?
It's not something I really thought about. It's funny you would ask that because I never really thought about it. Because for the most part, growing up,
people think that's
the only thing I can think of right now is the times that I would notice it might be when I hear some guy would say like, "Oh yeah, my father told me this," or "My daddy said that." Then I would hear it. It didn't impact me. It didn't hurt me. But that was just me. It wasn't like, "Oh, where's my daddy at?" It was. I wasn't like that. But I also realized because I'm the oldest of two other brothers that's how I process things. Because one thing I've learned that you could be raised by the same parent, but just because you're raised by the same parent don't mean that you and your siblings are going to process everything the exact same way.
Got you. Now let me ask you this. How did your relationship with your father affect your parenting style with your children?
Well, one of the things I recall my brother and I making a pledge to ourselves when we were probably teenagers again was that because we were raised by a mother, we said we were going to always be there for our children. And for the most part, that's what we've done. I've had physical custody of my daughters since they were 7 and 3. And I've raised them since then. So I still have a house full of women. But that was one of the ways that impacted me. Another thing was, and this is something, my mentality is as long as you're living, you're learning. So I would probably say in the last few years, I realized there's a lot of authority that we as men have, and it's not necessarily from our physical strength or just like raising our voice, but it's just a natural God-given authority that we have, and that was something that I had to learn on my own, but I didn't necessarily learn from my father. However, I've noticed even from him and from other men that when older men tend to talk, and you'll see this with pretty much anybody, when older men talk, children just naturally just freeze. They stop what they're doing or they're paying attention. And I begin to realize that's something that all men have, but we have never kind of put a spotlight on it to say, this is who you are. This is part of your strength that God has given to each and every one of us. So unfortunately, fortunately, that was one of the things that I've learned, but I've learned that as my daughters have gotten older. So as I learn better ways of parenting, I do things with my granddaughter or say things with her that I may not do with my daughters. So naturally, and I think pretty much most of us can say this, as you get older, you see things that your parents did and you wonder why they did it. And you notice that as they gotten older, they may have gotten softer with their grands versus with their regular children, their own children. And that's because usually you become a little wiser, not always for everybody, but you become a little wiser in your parenting skills, and there's more tools that you can use to make yourself a better parent.
Okay. All right. Good stuff there. Now, have there been any other men outside of your father who had an influence on your life in a positive way?
So I had a lot of uncles, cousins. I've always been a type that I was going to do things my way. That has always been my attitude. So there were things that I saw that I did not like, I did not approve of, and because of that, I chose to do the opposite. So if there was things that were beneficial, sure, I would follow in that suit. But there were things that I saw that was not beneficial, so I would just do the opposite. So, because ideally, I know a lot of times we think that if you're lacking something, it's going to have a negative impact on the child growing up. However, you don't know how that child's going to process things. It may actually have a positive impact, even though it's a negative environment. So I can just say for me that there was just a lot of things I would just flip over. I don't know why, but that's just how my mind operates. I just refuse to follow the crowd and do what everybody else is doing and adopt that mentality.
So you did not have any positive male role models?
There were positive things. There were positive and negative. When I try to think of some of the positive things, of course, they were always working. That's a positive thing, of course. Some of them would take care of the families. Others, they weren't as diligent as they probably could have been. Like I said, there were a lot of things, and not really pointing out specific things. There was something. One of the main things I could probably say is like I saw drinking, and that was one of the things that I just said I would not do. I didn't want to. I wanted to be different from all of the other men. But as far as positive things. Mother's calling, leaving me a message. But some of the positive things I'm trying to think. Pretty much, they were mostly at work most of the time. They were always working. They were always working.
Interesting, because one of the recurrent themes that I saw with my previous interviews where men were saying that they, in addition to their fathers, or if they didn't have fathers, they had some male in their life as a mentor, or some even mentioned at the barbershop, or different positive men who impacted their lives growing up and then when they were young adults. So for you saying that you didn't have positive male role models, can you identify something within yourself? What was the catalyst that made you decide to do the opposite? Because for some people, period, and right now we're specifically talking about fatherhood, when it's like, I didn't have a father, I didn't have a strong male role model, and so therefore I was not a present father or a strong male role model to my children. But you did the opposite without examples. What do you think propelled you to be able to do that?
Well, I'm going to jump back. So I will say that because I'm the oldest of my brothers, I was always told by my father and everybody else, take care of your mother, take care of your brother. So that was something that was ingrained in me from day one. And as far as like the male influence, we grew up where we played outside, played basketball. So it was common to have guys 2, 4, 5 years older than me. And naturally, we always looked up to them. So they played a role and kind of shaped me as well as far as different things. Like one guy, he's 5 years older than me. And I remember when I started driving, he asked me to take him somewhere. And I took him somewhere and somebody was trying to force me off the road. And he was like, don't let traffic dictate you. You dictate to them. And I was 16 at the time, so to this day that has stuck with me. So it was a group effort. It was a village effort. I just took different things from different people. But one of the biggest catalysts that has impacted me personally was the Bible, was God. My mother drug us to church. We went kicking and screaming. Not a lot of screaming because that would be trouble. But I was very mischievous. It wasn't bad. I was just mischievous, as my uncle has told me. And it was just something about the Bible that when I read it as a kid, nobody forced me to, but it was things that just kind of scared me that jumped out at me when I read it. So I literally found myself probably like 12 or 13 kind of turning my life around. In addition to that, I remember my grandmother, now we're not Jewish, but my grandmother told me when I turned 13 that my mother was no longer responsible for my sins. So I'm thinking to myself, I don't want my mother to go to hell or get in trouble because of me. So that kind of helped me to just like do the right thing, because my mother has done so much for me that I didn't want her to have to do anything else for me. So at that age, I was working. I was mopping floors, making minimum wage at the time at 13. Started cutting grass at 14 in the neighborhood. So I was always doing my share. Anything I could do to help my mother, I was doing it. So that taking care of my mother was a thing that was a catalyst that kind of helped me, because I could look at my brothers and they had a little more freedom, I believe, to kind of be themselves. But I've always been that young adult at a very early age.
Yeah, an introspective child, a little teenage man. All right. So how old were you when you got married and when your first child was born?
Okay, so it didn't go in that order.
Whatever order.
Yeah.
Give me the numbers. Give me the math.
So I was 17 when I had my daughter. I was actually still in high school. So yes, I was, like I said, I was mischievous.
A little man 17. Child.
Yes. 17 when I had her. And then I was 22 or 23 when I got married, I believe. Yeah, but 23, I think. And that lasts about 3.5 years. Call your grandmother, please. Okay. Sorry. And that lasted about 3.5 years.
You were 23 when you got married, and how old were you when you all got divorced?
So, it was 22 when we got married, because then my daughter, my second born, was born just before I turned 23, and then divorced 26, 27 years old, something like that.
Okay. So I'm going somewhere with this as I'm getting all up in your business. So at that point, you had custody of both of the girls?
No. At that time, we had joint physical custody. We had joint custody, but she had physical at the time. And we went to court and I contested physical custody, and some things had happened that allowed me to get physical custody of my daughter. So I have physical custody. We continue to have joint custody, and she doesn't live here in Virginia with us. So ever since then, I've had custody of my daughters. And that was at a time where, for the most part, a father with a single parent father was truly unheard of.
Yeah, my story that I was raised from 12 on up to 18 by my dad. So that's why I have a soft spot and a desire to make sure that these types of stories are told. Now, did you all have a custody dispute? Were there difficulties there? Was it kind of like a battle, or did things just kind of fall in place?
There were things on her part that she had to fulfill that was not fulfilled. And because of that, and it actually made the judge a little upset. So he asked me if I still wanted custody, and I said yes, and it was granted. It was nothing on my part that I did, because initially we had gone to court the day before, and I was told no. But she had a follow-on decision from the court that she had to fulfill, and because that wasn't fulfilled, I was allowed to get custody.
Okay, somebody's sending a lot of mad faces.
I see.
I'm curious as to which
I see
that infuriated someone, but nonetheless, so do you have any advice for men who may be going through custody battles or custody disputes?
I would say don't wait for, I would say if you're in a situation where you know that you're, I'm not going to say the better parent, but maybe like more the responsible parent, or you want to be in your child's life, don't wait for the courts to tell you when to see your children, or how often to see them, or what you need to do. You need to take the initiative and go ahead and contest custody. If she currently has custody of the child, go ahead and make arrangements. If you're fine with that, or if you just want 50-50, whatever it is, you take the initiative. Don't allow the stereotypes of the judge is going to give the children to the mothers because it's a default. No, society has changed a lot in the last 20 plus years. So judges, in my opinion, have become a little more realistic to the fact that there are fathers out there, and I know there are a lot of fathers out there that not only want to be in a child's life, but are trying to be in his children's life. And some mothers are upset or bitter or whatever their reason may be, and will do everything they can to prevent the father from being in the child's life. So don't allow the threats to stop you. If you want to be with your child, that's your relationship, and you do what you have to do to be with them.
Okay, now let's go back to you're still in your 20s, and now you are single father, divorced, with custody of 2 children who are girls. And It's a society in which you're saying that that's uncommon, or people don't see that a lot. What were some of the greatest challenges that you faced internally and externally as a father, a single father, with custody of 2 girls?
Well, one of those challenges was doing their hair.
Did you ever get it right? Did you ever get that down?
So there were times where I had a coworker that told me how to look down, stand over them and look down their nose, and how to make the part straight. And all I could do was the pigtails. And but thank God that I had a babysitter. And at the time, while I had custody of my daughters, I was working 2 jobs. I had a full-time job, and I also was in the reserves. So between my babysitter, one of my coworkers at my full-time job, and one of my coworkers at my part-time job, they knew about my situation. So from time to time, they would just say, "Hey, we'll do your daughter's hair for you," and believe me, that was a huge blessing. That was one of those external battles I had. One of the internal battles was there was times that for the most part it would wear on me. Because I felt somewhat isolated, because like I said, there is no support. There was no support group for fathers and what I was dealing with. So no one could really relate. So I found myself, if I was at a party or an event and there was a lot of mothers talking, I could easily relate to a lot of the conversations they were talking about as far as kids are concerned. But then at the same time, when fathers were talking, they were talking about, sports, what was going on. I didn't have time to watch sports because, again, with 2 daughters and working 2 jobs, that was a luxury for me. So the things that they would talk about, I didn't have time for, and the things that the mothers were talking about was my time. So there was times where I really felt isolated, and I was like, wow, I won't say depressed, but I felt alone. But at the same time, I had to remind myself, I'm their father. They didn't ask to be here. It's my duty, it's my responsibility to raise them to the best of my ability. And, I had to encourage myself to remind myself that that's what it's about. That's what being a parent is about. Whether you choose to have children and plan, their arrival, or you didn't choose their arrival, but they're here. My attitude was they're here. They're my responsibility. They have my last name, not the state or whatever that you're residing in. So no one else should be taking care of my children.
All right, so a lot of things to unpack there, a lot of jewels that you just dropped. For one, a lot of maturity and responsibility at a young age, a lot of conviction. Also, when you said that you felt alone or possibly depressed, that is part of the reason why I continue to have this conversation, because a lot of times men are not discussing these things. A lot of times we don't even recognize that these situations exist within our community, and I want this to be an outlet. There's somebody watching right now or who can relate to this or needed to hear this, or there's somebody who is thinking of somebody they know who they're going to share this with. And I think what you say that men need to do could benefit from doing a better job of having conversations like this with one another.
Oh yes, definitely. Because for the most part, unfortunately, we allow society to kind of give us permission what we can and can't talk about. So for the most part, being a man is always tied into talking about sports, women, sex, alcohol, money, and cars. I mean, not saying all men, but that's what society's perception of what a man should be talking about. But again, after just telling you about my teenage years, I've never been one to really follow the script that society has created for us. So I've slowly begun to hear about other fathers that are trying to see their children or have custody, and it's a battle. And it hasn't happened a whole lot, but when the chance presents itself, I definitely let them know that, you're not alone, you're not the first one. And if anything, don't stick to the script that society has written for us as far as men, especially black men. There's already a perception that black men don't take care of their children, not there. And you can't, unfortunately, the society has taken, they've taken the few and put a magnifying glass over them to make it look like that it's all of us, and it's not all of us. Unfortunately, the ones who are taking responsibility are the ones that are not talked about. And I'm not saying talked about as far as they need to be held in high esteem or need to have a parade thrown in their honor, but just being recognized that they're doing their God-given obligation as far as being a father.
And we are here to recognize you today. Yes. And, it's something that should be recognized all the time, but you're getting a lot of love in this chat here. I'm going to shout out some of the people we have. El Renee. How you doing, sis? James, Tony, Sean, Monica, Alvin, Carolyn is dropping a lot of things in here. And James actually had a question. He said he has a friend who once told him that because of the estranged relationship with his father, it made the friend sort of angry, but that ended up being the motivation to be a better man and a father. And James would like to know, can you relate to that?
I can. Like I was saying earlier, that my relationship with my father wasn't as close as it could have been. And because of my maturity, and I have to go back to the Bible again, I realized that all of us are shaped by our upbringing. I don't believe that there's such a thing as a normal functioning home, because things happen to each and every one of us, good and bad. And in my mind, I just think that, and I look at my father, and because we lived 12 hours away, 2 different states. I can't say that he did as much as he could, or he didn't do as much as he could. But because I'm a grown man, I would reach out and I would call him. I go visit him. I do my part to bridge the gap. So in my mind, he can never say that I never tried to establish anything, but I can say, since I've taken that mindset over the last 15, 20 years, that we have grown closer together because of that. because it is hard to talk to somebody, you know, as a parent, but you feel more like a stranger to them because you don't know their favorite colors, you don't know their lifestyle, their habits. If they get up in the middle of the night and got to get something to eat or drink, I mean, just little things like that. You don't truly learn like you learn with the parent that you see each and every single day, and there's a routine established around that person.
True. Got it. Makes a lot of sense. Now, I appreciate you being so open and honest about the challenges that you faced as a single father of 2 daughters. So now I'll ask you, what were some of your greatest moments as a father?
One of the ones that stand out to me, she just happened to walk by, is I remember when I was picking my daughters up from the babysitter, and the babysitter was telling me that one of the little boys was messing with my daughter. He had put I think it was a dead bee or something in her face, and she was just screaming. And he had already left when I was at the house, so we were going to the store, and I was upset because she was really upset. And we passed the basketball court, and she pointed him out to me and said, "Daddy, there he go, there he go." I said, "Who?" "The boy who put the bee in my face." So I stopped the car, and I got out, and I just told him, I said, "You know, don't ever do that again. She asked you not to do it, don't do it." And I might have said a few other words, and he was like, "Okay." And when I turned around and I looked, and all I could see in the back seat of the car, with her face up to the window, you know, like this, was her smiling. Oh. You know, and that was just one of those moments like, wow.
Hero.
Yeah, exactly. You know, you hear it, but then when I thought about it, I was like, wow, that made me feel like her hero. And, you know, all I could do was just blush like, wow, that's something.
Awesome.
You know, I mean, and like I said, I wasn't thinking nothing of it, but it was just one of those moments that will always stay in my mind.
That's great. I mean, I think that's one of the things that fathers love is feeling like a hero to their children, probably especially their daughters, but I'd say children in general. So thanks for sharing that. Let me see. What else do we have here? Now, are there any challenges, strategies, or philosophies that you have based on the gender of your children? Like, are there any specific challenges that you could speak to, or strategies or philosophies that you have developed that you could tell us about based on, you have 2 girls, so raising daughters. You got some jewels from a daddy-daughter perspective.
I've learned a lot raising girls. A lot. One of the things I learned is that they need their time. And what I mean by they need their time is, it is so easy for me to go to work and then come home and then get into cook dinner or whatever mode I got to get into. And especially when they were younger, that routine was go to work, come home, pick them up from the babysitter, have them do homework, cook dinner while they were doing their homework, brush their teeth. I mean, we had a routine, a very rigid routine. But one of the things they would always want to do is tell me about their day. It was fine when they was telling me about their day as we were riding the car from the babysitter to our house. But once we got in the house, I didn't want to hear it anymore, because like I'm taking hat off, I'm putting on cook mode, and I'm putting on a homework hat on my head, and that was it. And I think Monica's on here as well. She's like my sister. She was a big help with me raising my daughters. Was just telling me about they need that time. So I would come home and take off the work hat and give them like 15 minutes to just sit there, and I would just listen and let them tell me their day. And it was a challenge because I just wasn't used to that. And being mature, I'm wanting more of an adult conversation, but you don't have that with your little girls. But I realized that because that was what was important to them, I needed to make time and make it important to me as well. So, fathers, we like to, I think we all put those hats on that we're, work mode, or we're fixing, repairing mode. We have different hats that we put on. But make sure, especially with your girls, that you're taking time out to have that daddy-daughter time with them. And honestly, it doesn't stop. Even when they're grown, you still have to keep doing that. And even with mine too, I haven't done a lot of it lately, but recently I started at least trying to take them out, or just sit and talk with them when our schedules align. So that's definitely one nugget that I would say that always make time for your daughters. Your sons need you, but boys, we're different, because for the most part, when you're a teenager, late teens, early 20s, you pretty much have already been smelling yourself. You've already kind of feel like you're a man, and you're going to just test waters and go out there and explore. So, we tend to be a little hands-offish, that we don't need our parents to really support as much as I believe some daughters do.
Okay, that was great. Give them their time. I love it. Hi, Deborah. Hi, Monica. Let me see. We have some comments on here. Great fathers are the real heroes, said L. Vicky. And Deborah is asking, how old are your daughters now?
26 and 22.
All right, so they're 26 and 22. Let's see now. Do you have what would you say to a man right now who is not involved in the lives of his children?
That is probably one of the most damaging things a father could do to his seed. For whatever your reason is, if a father's not in his child's life, you're robbing them of their identity, because they will have questions. They will want to know who they are. They will have questions about themselves that only the father can answer. There's a lot of things that they get from you that you may not even be aware of. It doesn't matter if you're not working. It doesn't matter if you're not a doctor or lawyer, or you're working at a fast food restaurant. Children don't care about those things. Adults do. Even if you could only just pick them up on the weekends, take them to the park is free. You could play hopscotch, freeze tag with them. But it is very detrimental to spend time with your child or your children. It truly is. Especially with girls, because I've talked to a lot of women, and I listened to some of the things that they've gone through in their own lives because their father was there or wasn't there. It was amazing to me to realize the power and the influence that a father has. And if you feel or believe that you have nothing to offer your child, you can inbox me or find another brother, but that is truly a lie. You have something to offer them. Don't get focused on the material things, because it's the intangible things. Time, the words that you share with them. Even if you made a lot of mistakes, look at that as experience, and that's something that you can give to them that they don't have to make for their own life. There's a lot of things that you can offer, but if you just feel that way, believe that about yourself, I would say do some soul searching and realize that you have more to offer than what you think.
Yes, I agree with that. No, we're not going to make excuses, but nonetheless, even with my journey with trying to find men to be mentors, I found that one of the biggest barriers was men feeling they were inadequate to do the job. So I imagine that what you're saying could possibly translate to inactive fathers, but nonetheless, like I said, we're not making excuses, but I think that was a good thing that you pointed on there. Regardless of your income, or your quote unquote social status or whatever. It's the time, it's the effort, it's the telling the little boy who put the dead bee in your daughter's face that there'll be no dead bees in my baby's face.
Right.
You know, it's those things, and you know, just instilling values and putting in that time, because it's one of the things that I talk about a lot. Out of all the things that I got as a child, and I feel like I got a lot as I got to be older, it was that the time from my dad, from my family, the love, all of those things that you find really, really shape who you are, not the toys and the trips and all of those things. They kind of go off to the wayside, or at best it's a nice memory, but it's that time that is put into there, that love, that effort that you go back as an adult and you're able to evaluate it that way. So I think that is really good. We have a question here from Monica, and she said, as a father, if you had a redo, is there anything, well, she didn't say anything, so I'm going to quote what she said. What would you do differently? That's Monica. I didn't do that.
I know.
So you blame.
I don't think there's anything I would change. It was a great learning experience. I can't think of anything that I would change. Like I said, I've learned a lot about women because of my own daughters. It kind of shaped some of my own values. There's nothing I would change. Maybe having a few more female friends that could do hair, that would probably be one of the major things I would change.
Got you. Makes sense. So let me ask you this. I'm going to get a little controversial. Mm-hmm. Do you have any advice that you would give to single mothers? And I would specify in regards to something specific, but is there anything you would think of in your mind if you were talking to a room of single mothers that you would like to share with them from the perspective of a father?
One, be honest with yourself. Is he a good father? Meaning you're allowing him to see his child, spend time with the child, provide and protect for the child. Another thing is you got a babysitter already that's probably willing to keep your child, the two abuse child. Let him get it, his child. We all need help. Sometimes I see on social media the mantra, usually from, I don't think I've ever seen a single parent male say this. It's usually been single parent women that say, I can do this all by myself. No, you can't. We all need help. You need help. I needed help. We all need help. So it's okay to ask for help. And not only that, you can learn from one another. You can learn different things from different parents. If you're about becoming a better parent, because there is no book per se that tells you how to be a parent, how to be a great parent. A lot of the parenting comes from the things that we watch as children ourselves, and we bring from our children, from our upbringing into childhood or into adulthood, parenthood actually. Another thing I would say is don't bash your child's father in front of the children. If he's a bad boyfriend, if you two have a bad relationship, treat your relationship and a child's relationship with the father as two separate relationships, because they are. The child had no say in picking the father. You did. So if you made a bad choice, and we do, accept that and just move past the bad relationship choice that you made with him for a relationship, but don't penalize the child for the decision that you made.
Makes sense. Makes perfect sense. Thanks for that. So what are the things that you want most for your children and your granddaughter?
Ideally, I want them to excel me. I want them to go beyond the things that I've done. At the same time, I've done a few things, but I plan on to do more things. So, as far as terms of what I would deem as being successful, some of the goals that they wrote down, like my youngest daughter, she's in school to become a pharmacist, so she has about 4 to 5 more years to go. But that, my oldest, she's looking for a job right now, but she's had goals before and she was able to start achieving some of them, but some things have happened, but it slowed her down, but it's not stopping her. And that's one of the things, and to me, that is a form of success, because sometimes when we get knocked down, we stay down, but her attitude is that she got knocked down, but she's still going. So that's a plus for me. Ideally, I like to see them both married. Another goal, and my youngest has already been doing it, I told them both they should travel, see the world. So my youngest has begun traveling, going different places, and I've told her, I said, you've done more traveling than a lot of your peers have at your age, which is a good thing. I want them to do more than what I've done in life.
Great. I'm curious, one thing that you said I'd like to ask, when you said you would like to see them married, why is that one of the goals, one of the things that you would like to see for them?
Even though I'm not married, but I still say and believe that marriage is...
Ladies, he put that out there.
Yeah, I see Renee's comment. But I still say that marriage is a beautiful thing. It's a beautiful thing, and like any relationship, it requires work. And I believe that both of them, with the right spouse, will carry on the legacy. Will carry on the legacy of some of the things I've instilled in them. In life, you need companionship. You know, even if you're not married, you need at least best friends. You need somebody to go through life with, because you can only do so much by yourself. When you're down, when you're depressed, you need someone to talk to. And then with my oldest, she's, even though they're with me and I'm in my granddaughter's life, it's good for her to have that another father figure there as well, because ideally, and it's not, it doesn't have to happen, but ideally to have her watch, my granddaughter Serenity watch how her mother is being treated by a man. Because I'm the father, so I'm always going to treat them a certain way, but a husband is going to treat them a different way, and that's one thing I would like for them to see.
Great. Now, Monica, this is getting interesting. What have you been waiting for? So you can't just put that out there like that.
Don't encourage her.
We need to let you know. We need you to let us know what you've been waiting for, please. Thank you. And let me see. I got 2. Our time is coming close to an end, so I'm gonna eeny, meeny, miny, mo here. Which one of these last questions I'm gonna ask you? Let's see. Now, what do you feel? Now let me put this into context, because there are the one of the points of doing this series is to expose the fact that Black fathers do exist within our communities. Black men are active with their children, and that there is a need for the man and the woman in our family situations and in our community, period, and that we cannot do this without one another. It's, like I'm an advocate for Black people, and that means Black man, Black woman, child, family, individuals, and all of that good stuff. So, but I do want to ask, there are still people who have stories where their father was not in their lives, and that's not something that is unique to Black people, but nonetheless, that's what we're discussing here. So, what do you feel that Black men can do to help end the cycle of fatherlessness within the Black community?
It kind of goes back to what I said earlier. You have to have an identity and recognize that you're no longer just a single man. even if you don't have custody of your child, if you're a father, you are also a father. And I've looked up father, and I saw one of the definitions, I think in Hebrew, meant source, provider, father of light. And when I look at that, that means that my children's identity will be defined by my understanding of life and who I am. So my thing is, be there for your child. Society, if you keep following society, like I don't watch videos, the few that I have seen, you rarely see black men in a positive light. I'm talking about music videos, but you don't see a lot of black men in a positive light. Don't wait for a movement to start being in your child's life. Start the movement yourself. Start in your house. Start in your neighborhood. If you have a child, if you're watching this, don't wait for someone else to tell you to do what you already know what you need to do. Part of being a man means being responsible, and I know responsibility is becoming more of a vulgar word, a curse word in our society now. But the reality is, and this is my mentality, I laid with their mother. I made the child. I knew what could happen. I understand how a child comes into this world.
No stork.
There's no stork, no blue moon, and all of a sudden, babies on the step. No, none of that stuff happens. But being I'll say this. One of the things I think that some women like to see in a man that makes him attractive is him living up to his God-given abilities to be responsible. It's not really said that often because it's just assumed, and now it's being taken for granted because you don't see men doing what they need to do. So you don't have to wait for a Black Panther movie to come out and see them doing good to want to do good for your own family. Just go ahead and just start, because I can tell you, when I went through getting custody, I think I probably had a better chance of hitting the lottery, or at least believing I could, because in my mind, there was no way I was going to get custody. But at the very least, I just heard this voice just telling me, try. What is the worst that could happen? Just try. And I did, and I got it. So with that being said, this is your chance to control the narrative for your life. When you get older, you're 70, 80 years old, whatever that you decided to do now, take them to the park, to the movies, take them to the library. It's free. Pick out a book and read, or get online and play some of the games. It's free, and I'm frugal. Monica can tell you that. But when you get older, see, you're not only impacting their life, they're impacting your life, because you can look back and smile because they will reflect at some point some of the things you said, some of the habits you taught them. Even when they have children, if you took them to the library, you took them to the park and run around and play, they may take their children and they may say, this is the reason why I do this, Daddy, because you did this with us. So with that being said, I didn't mention anything about having a degree. I didn't mention anything about having 6 figures, 7 figures, or 4 figures. And I will say, preferably all legal positions, nothing illegal where you're locked up, because that's some do it, and I'm not condoning it nor support it, but you can do better because your child deserves better.
Great, you dropped a lot of jewels there. Thank you for that. Now I have to address these comments that happened while you were talking. Like, first of all, Monica never answered my question. Second, James, I'm jealous. I'm just gonna put it all the way out there, like, bump the hostess. Did you see what James said? He said that he would like to offer you a couple of tickets to anywhere in the continental U.S. for a weekend for you to have a me time trip.
Wow.
Let me find out. He told it. Yeah, forget the hostess and all her. But no, I think that's great. I think that's that's great. I hope that's true. Baby mamas like to come on the trend. So, all right. All right now, do you see that comment? Many blessings come, from the... Monica says she won't say it. She's behaving, so she might breadcrumb to us there. She threw something out and didn't follow through with it. But yes, okay. And Sean is telling me to give you the challenge. So
what challenge?
So I don't know if do you have a network of fathers that you communicate with?
My friends that are fathers.
Do you guys communicate about fatherhood?
Not a whole lot.
Okay, so I'm going to give you the challenge.
Oh, that's fine.
All right.
You know how I feel about challenges, so...
Yes, I definitely, I do know how you feel about challenges. So basically, one thing that I said to Sean, because I asked him about Black men breaking the cycle of fatherlessness, and it was like, needing to communicate with one another and holding men accountable for how they take care of their children and if they're present in their children's lives. And one thing that I charged him to do by July 1st was to reach out to one or two men who were fathers and set up an accountability situation in which or just a rapport where they agree, whatever their conditions or terms are, that they will talk once a month. Because men have, it comes up feeling isolated or alone or not knowing what to do. So while you're a granddad now and you have grown children, while you may not be dealing with those things anymore, you may have some fathers who are still raising children, or somebody where you possibly, if it's just a once a month conversation, a dad where you guys say, we're gonna do 30 minutes or an hour once a month and just talk about this whole fatherhood thing and be transparent with one another.
Done.
Okay, so you have to identify that person. You don't have to tell us who it is, but by July 1, you got to come back and drop it in this video, in this comment section, and say that you completed that you initiated that task.
It's already done.
All right, great. I love you guys. You all are. I mean, it's just really good because, like I said, this is definitely going to inspire some men. But I think it's really good for women to see that men like you all do exist. Because I just think when we allow other people to control the narrative, and we're looking at love and hip hop and things that were, produced and put out there for the demise of our communities, we will easily begin to believe that that's the reality and that's the totality of our reality, where it's just a small aspect and it's production. And so people like yourself, myself, and different people, we just, who are living our lives and passing by each other on a daily basis, these stories are not being told. So I think that's really, really great. So you will drop that comment
yes.
here by July 1st. And is there anything else that you would like to say? I know I asked all the questions, so just if you want to put anything out there, you're welcome to do that.
I would like to say that if you want to change the way you think about life or change your mindset, change what you watch and what you listen to. We're talking to everybody, but particularly Black men. Stop supporting the songs, videos that promote calling each other the N-word, that call women out of their name, that always show you not, especially if you're a father, that show you in a negative light. Because the reality is, if you eat spinach and kale and broccoli, all this green stuff, and I'm gonna get gross for a minute, and you go to the bathroom, your bowels may reflect what you just eat. And the same is true about what you watch. What you watch and what you listen to goes into your mind, goes into your heart, and it comes out of your behavior. You may not see it per se, but others around you can see it. So if you want to change where you are, change what you watch, change what you listen to, read something that's beneficial, do something that's beneficial, but stop taking in garbage. And that's what I want to say.
All right, that's good stuff right there. Renee say yes, input equals output. Hi, Shanta. How are you doing? How's our girl? So thank you, BJ. I really, really appreciate you taking the time to do this. This is actually your second one with me, but that was like, 2012, 2013? It was the first panel discussion that I did with fathers. A long time ago. So yeah, and your girls weren't grown. Whenever we did that, I just know it may have been before 2012, but they were not adults yet. So you have a whole new perspective, and you didn't have a grandbaby at that point, did you?
Nope.
Yeah, so it's nice to see things come full circle and continue to progress. You had a lot to offer then, and you still do. So thank you for taking the time out to do this. As I said before, thank you to everybody for tuning in. And just a reminder that we can't do this without one another. I see a lot of times now there is a narrative that's trying to come in that is divisive between Black men and Black women. Very combative, very one-sided. Black men for Black men, Black women for Black women. And I'm like, we will not progress until we build bridges and recognize the value of one another in our lives, and build and strengthen our relationships. And whether those are for lack of a better term, romantic relationships, as well as just seeing the humanity in one another and what we have to do together to build up our communities and build up our youth. So I appreciate you, BJ, for tuning in and doing this and sharing your personal business. That's not always easy for people. So I appreciate you guys coming on here and being vulnerable.
Anything for my baby mama. Anything for my baby mama. Oh,
I appreciate it. Anything like a trip anywhere around the continental U.S. Hey, look, you guys, Tony put that on. Let me see. He put that. James Tony put that on here. It's in writing, right? So you guys can hold him accountable for that, right? I think he disappeared. I don't know where he went. He just threw that kind of thing out there and it just disappeared on us. Where you at? Disappeared on you because he didn't offer it to me. So let's see. Hi, T. Thank you. I'm glad you guys are enjoying this. And so continue to tune in. We'll be doing this again tomorrow. I will have at 3 p.m. Dion Showtime Chavis. And if you guys are from the Hampton Roads area, then you guys remember him from 91.1 when he had the morning show and he would have us in stitches like every morning. And he's now in Raleigh doing his thing for some time now and doing a lot of things with Fatherhood. So he has some great perspectives, and that's 3 p.m. Eastern Standard Time tomorrow. And then I will be talking to Timothy Williams at 8 p.m. who's going to have a lot of great things tomorrow. And then you guys tune in on Thursday and we're going to repeat the process. And our last father is wise, intelligent, a poor, righteous teacher. So my hip hop heads who are grown, y'all remember all that rock this funky joint. And when people used to run up on me talking about Easy Starr. So you guys remember that. So I'll be interviewing him on Thursday at 8 p.m. So continue to tune in. This is a series. Make sure you share it with your network so more people can be exposed to this. So we're going to call it a night. Thanks, baby daddy. Make sure that our babies see this. And did you have anything you wanted to say real quickly about this? It's not biological fatherhood, but taking on mentorship real quickly. And now you have some boys that you have a fatherhood role with.
Yeah, in 30 seconds, I'll just say that I was somewhat reluctant because a lot of things I just shared tonight were the revelations that I got as far as mentoring, because I didn't think I had anything to offer them, but I had to do a reality check, and I realized that, my life experiences are valuable. And here we have this young woman asking brothers, can you just step up? Can you spend just an hour? And just her asking was enough for me just to do my part. So now we're coming up on 2 years this November that I've been spending with Devon, and I love it, and I realize that you don't have to be a biological father for a child. If you're a man, you know how we look up to other older men and we just naturally take from them. So if you're in a position where you have time, or better yet, you just make time to want to influence a young teenager, mentor somebody, and if you can't find somebody, talk to Starr if you're in the Hampton Roads area.
Awesome. Thank you. I appreciate it because I put the call out here and you definitely heeded the call and, got beside any, insecurities or whatever may have been there, and even went on to start inspiring other men to do the same. You were quite the achiever and overachiever, so I appreciate you for what you have done for your children, the example you set as a father, and what you came along and did for my boys who are now our boys. And your footprint is just far reaching, and in years to come you're just gonna have a lot of seeds sprouting out and a lot of love coming back to you for all you do. So thank you so much, and we're gonna wrap it up. So y'all have a good night. Thanks,
good
BJ.
Night. You're welcome.
Hasta la vista, baby.
Peace. Because
I used to be skinny and kind of muscular. I ain't that no more.
I want her to see that image like, I don't want to worry about nothing. And so, like I said, I try to constantly live in peace, and I try to keep my son at that, try to teach him peace and, conflict resolution.
I would like to say that if you want to change the way you think about life or change your mindset, change what you watch and what you listen to. We're talking to everybody, but particularly black men. Stop supporting the songs, videos that promote calling each other the N-word.